My name is Simone Adler. I'm 33 years old. And the night after Thanksgiving, when I opened my phone and realized I had been blocked by 17 members of my own family, was when I finally understood that being the person who manages everything is not the same as being the person anyone sees. I found out the way you find out about things that happen to you without your knowledge. Indirectly, through a gap. I was scrolling on a Tuesday evening and noticed that a story I expected to see, my Aunt Celeste posted every day without exception, was simply not there. I went to her profile. It loaded as a blank. I tried my cousin Marcus. Blank. My Uncle Ray. Blank. I went through the list methodically, the way I approach any inventory, and when I had gone through 12 names and found 12 blank profiles, I stopped and sat with what I was looking at. Paulette's message came in 11 minutes later. Paulette is my father's sister's youngest daughter, and she has always been, in the particular way of large families, the one who tells you things other people decided you shouldn't know. She sent the message from a second account I hadn't seen before. It said, "They all blocked you last night. There was a group call. They said you're negative and they're done with the energy you bring." I read the message. I set my phone on the arm of the couch. I looked at the wall across from me for a while. Then I picked the phone back up. What none of them had thought to check, what none of them knew to think about, because the maintenance of these things had been so seamlessly mine for so long, was that the car insurance on my Uncle Ray's second vehicle ran through my account. That the family phone plan, a shared plan with 6 lines that I had set up 4 years ago because the group rate was substantially better, and I was the one with the right carrier relationship, was billed to my card every month. That the storage unit in my Aunt Celeste's neighborhood, the one that held my grandmother's furniture after she moved to assisted living, the furniture that was supposed to go to various family members once they had room for it, was leased under my name. That 3 streaming subscriptions, shared across the family through profile sharing, ran on my payment information. That my cousin Marcus's daughter's after-school program sent its monthly invoice to an email address I managed, paid automatically from an account I controlled, because Marcus had asked me to set it up 18 months ago when he was going through a period of disorganization, and I had said yes because I always said yes. All of it was mine. All of it was billed to me. All of it had been running, quietly and without comment, for between 1 and 4 years, maintained by a person 17 people had just collectively decided to block on a Tuesday night. I sat with that for 53 minutes. I know it was 53 minutes because I looked at the clock when Paulette's message came in, and I looked at it again when I opened my laptop. Then I opened my laptop. Before I tell you what I did that night, I need to tell you how I became the person who managed all of it, because that story is longer than one Tuesday evening, and it is the only context in which what happened next makes sense. I am an account manager at a regional healthcare staffing firm, a job that is, at its core, the management of relationships and logistics at the same time, the maintenance of multiple moving systems with different requirements and different timelines, all held together by one person who keeps the overview in her head while everyone else focuses on their particular piece. I have been doing this work for 8 years. I am good at it in the way that some people are good at things because their aptitude for the work is not separable from who they are as a person. It is not a skill I developed so much as a capacity. I always had that the job gave a name and a salary to. The family had always known this about me, in the way families know things about people without examining them closely. Simone handles things. Simone is organized. Simone knows who to call. These were compliments of a kind, offered in the specific register of people who appreciate a resource and do not think very carefully about what maintaining the resource costs. I grew up the only child of my father, who was the middle of 4 siblings, and my mother, who moved to another state when I was 11, and with whom I have a separate and entirely different relationship that does not belong in this story. What is relevant is that my father's family, his sisters Celeste and Diane, his brother Ray, and the constellation of cousins that extended from them, became the primary family structure of my adult life, by proximity and by habit, and by the fact that my father died when I was 26, and the family he left me in was the one I had. I want to be careful here, because the picture is not simple. These were not people who treated me badly in obvious ways. Celeste made my birthday dinner every year until I was 30. Ray taught me to drive when my father was too sick to do it himself. My cousin Marcus, who is 10 years older than me, was the person I called the night my father died, and he answered and he came. These things are real, and I hold them alongside everything else. What is also real is the texture of how I was perceived within the family, which I can describe precisely because I paid close attention to it for years without naming what I was paying attention to. I was the capable one, and capable in this family's usage was a category that meant available, that meant you could ask Simone, that meant the assumption of yes before the question was finished. I was not the one people worried about. I was not the one people called to check on. I was the one people called when something needed doing, and I did it, and the doing of it confirmed the assumption that had generated the call. The phone plan started 4 years ago, as I said. The storage unit came 2 years after that, when my grandmother moved and someone needed to handle the furniture and the lease and the coordination with the assisted living facility about the move date, and I handled it because I was the one who had time and the one who was organized and the one who, when asked, said yes. The streaming subscriptions accumulated one at a time over 3 years. Marcus first, then Celeste, then Ray's household when his kids were teenagers, and he mentioned they didn't have access to a particular platform. The car insurance on Ray's second vehicle was the most recent, 14 months ago, when Ray's rate had been increasing and I mentioned I had a multi-vehicle policy that had room and it would be cheaper, and he said that sounded great, and I said I would set it up, and I did. Marcus's daughter's after-school program was the one I had thought about the most in the past year. Her name is Destiny, and she is 9 years old, and she goes to a program 3 days a week that includes homework help and a cooking component she talks about with the specific enthusiasm of a child who has found something she loves. I had been paying $287 a month for 18 months. Marcus had Venmo'd me the first 3 months, and then the Venmos had stopped, and I had not followed up because the program was good and Destiny loved it, and I had not wanted the money to be the reason a 9-year-old stopped going somewhere she loved. I want to say plainly that I was not naive about any of this. I knew what I was carrying. I had simply made a series of decisions, one at a time, over several years, that had accumulated into a load that I had not fully held up to the light and examined as a single thing until the night I opened my laptop and looked at the full list. The folder on my laptop was called Accounts, Active. I had created it 2 years ago when I realized I had enough recurring obligations on behalf of other people that I needed a single organized location to track them. It was a spreadsheet because I think in spreadsheets, with columns for the account name, the carrier or provider, the monthly amount, the renewal date, and the name of the family member it served. There were 11 rows. I looked at the spreadsheet for a while. Then I opened the first account. I want to be precise about what I was deciding because I think the precision matters here the way it mattered in all the other stories I could tell about this family and this night. I was not deciding to punish anyone. I was deciding to stop maintaining things for people who had decided, in a group call I had not been invited to, that I was too negative to remain in their digital orbit. These were my accounts. I had set them up. I had been paying them. The decision about whether to continue was mine. I started with the phone plan because it was the largest and the most logistically complex. I called the carrier's account line. I knew the number by memory, which tells you something about how often I had dealt with it, and I spoke with a representative named Kevin, who was efficient and asked no unnecessary questions, and I requested that the secondary lines be transitioned to individual accounts within 30 days per the plan's standard separation process, with a transition notice to be sent to each line holder's device. Kevin confirmed the request and sent me a confirmation email while I was still on the call. I thanked him and ended the call. The car insurance took 12 minutes online, a policy modification that removed Ray's vehicle from my multi-vehicle coverage, effective at the next billing cycle, with a notification sent to the registered vehicle address on file. The storage unit required a termination notice to be submitted through the facility's online portal, which I completed in 4 minutes, selecting the 30-day notice option so that the family would have time to retrieve my grandmother's furniture before the unit closed. I wrote a separate email to Celeste's address, not to her social media, which was now inaccessible to me, but to an email I had from years of coordinating, letting her know the unit's notice period and the date by which the contents needed to be claimed. The streaming subscriptions I canceled directly, effective immediately because they were month to month and there was no notice requirement. 3 cancellations, 3 confirmation emails, 8 minutes total. Marcus's daughter's after-school program was the last item on the list, and the one I considered the longest. I sat with it for several minutes. Destiny was 9 years old, and she loved the cooking component, and none of what had happened on a Tuesday night was her situation to navigate. I did not cancel the payment. What I did instead was send an email to the program director, a woman named Sandra Osei, explaining that I was transitioning the billing for this account to the child's parent and that Marcus Adler should be contacted directly to establish new payment arrangements before the next billing cycle. I included Marcus's phone number, which I knew, and I asked Sandra to confirm receipt. She replied the next morning with a brief, professional acknowledgement. That took the decision out of my hands and put it where it belonged, with Marcus, who is Destiny's father, who had asked me to set up the account and had stopped paying me for it, and who would now need to handle it directly. I closed the laptop at 11:47 p.m. The whole process had taken 41 minutes. I washed my face, set my coffee maker for the morning, and went to bed. Wednesday was a regular workday. I had a client review at 9, a staffing coordination call at 11, and an afternoon of documentation that needed to be completed before the week's end. I went to the office. I did the work. My colleague Renata, who sits across from me and who has a radar for when something is off, asked at lunch if I was okay. I said I'd had a quiet week. She accepted this, which is one of the things I value about her. I did not check for any family contact that day. There was none to check. Thursday morning I received a text from Paulette, again from the second account. It said, "Ray's car insurance got a notice. And the phone plan is sending everyone separation letters. What did you do?" I replied, "I transitioned the accounts. Everyone will get the details directly." Paulette replied, "Oh. Then they don't know it was all under your name." I replied, "They will." That was the whole exchange. Thursday afternoon, my Aunt Celeste called from a number I recognized, her landline, which I had not blocked because I had not blocked anyone. I answered. "Simone," she said. Her voice had the quality of someone trying to sound normal while standing in a room where something has gone wrong. "Celeste," I said. "There's something happening with Ray's car," she said. "And the phone plan. And apparently there's something about the storage unit." "Yes," I said. "I sent you an email about the storage unit. There's a 30-day notice period. You'll want to arrange to collect Grandma's furniture before the end of the notice window." A pause. You're on the storage unit?" "I've been paying the lease for 2 years," I said. "It's in my name." I submitted the termination notice Tuesday night. Another pause, longer. "The phone plan, the carrier sent Marcus a separation letter." "Yes," I said. "The plan has 6 lines. I've been the account holder since I set it up 4 years ago. All 6 lines are being moved to individual accounts over the next 30 days. Each person will need to contact the carrier to establish their own plan." The silence that followed was the specific kind that happens when someone is realizing that a situation is larger than they understood it to be. I heard Celeste's breath. I heard something in the background, a television or a radio, that she didn't turn off. "Simone," she said, and her voice had shifted from the careful normal into something quieter, something without the social management in it. "How long has it been? How much of this was you?" "Everything in those accounts," I said. "The phone plan, the storage unit, Ray's car insurance, the 3 streaming subscriptions, and Marcus's daughter's after-school program, which I've asked the program director to transition to Marcus directly." The silence again. "I didn't know," she said. "I know you didn't," I said. "No one did, because I didn't make it visible. That was my choice, and I take responsibility for it. But it's visible now." "The group call," she said. Tuesday night. "Simone, I want you to know I was not the one." "Celeste," I said, and I kept my voice level and clear, the same register I use when I'm managing a difficult staffing situation and I need everyone in the room to understand the facts without feeling attacked. "I'm not asking for an explanation of the call right now. I'm telling you what's happening with the accounts so that everyone can make other arrangements. The 30-day windows on the phone plan and the storage unit give people time. Ray's insurance transition takes effect at the next billing cycle. I've handled the notification for each one." A breath. "What do you need from us?" "Right now," I said, "nothing. I need you to pass the information to the people who need it. And I need you to claim Grandma's furniture before the unit closes." She said she would. We ended the call. I went back to my desk and finished my afternoon documentation. The cascade that followed over the next 72 hours was built entirely from the structure my family had created, from the years of assuming that accounts maintained themselves, that plans ran on goodwill, that the organizational infrastructure of their daily lives had no particular author. Ray called me Friday morning. His voice was different from Celeste's, less careful, more direct, the voice of a man who is accustomed to leading conversations and has found himself in one he didn't expect. He said he'd heard about the insurance. He said he didn't understand why I hadn't called before making changes. I said, Ray, the policy is in my name. I'm the account holder. I'm not required to notify you before modifying my own policy, but I did send the standard carrier notification to the address on file, which is yours. He was quiet for a moment. You've been paying it? Yes, I said. For 14 months. Another silence. I thought Marcus handles the money stuff. I assumed he was. Marcus's accounts are separate, I said. His daughter's program has been transitioned to him directly. The phone plan, the storage unit, and your car insurance were mine. I could hear him working through the arithmetic of it. The specific sound of a person who has just understood that a convenience they had been receiving was not a feature of the world, but a choice someone had been making on their behalf, and that the person had stopped making it. The group call, he said. Yes, I said. He did not say anything for a moment. Then, that was wrong. I want you to know I said so at the time. I did not ask him to prove this. I filed it as information. Thank you for telling me, I said. What do you need, he said. Same thing I told Celeste, I said. Make your arrangements in the 30-day window. That's all. Marcus called Saturday. He did not open with the accounts. He opened with, Sandra from the after-school program called me. Yes, I said. I transitioned the billing to you. A pause. You've been paying that for 18 months, I said. The last 15 without reimbursement. The silence on Marcus's end had a different quality from Ray's or Celeste's. Marcus is the one who came when my father died. He knows what that means, and I know what that means, and neither of us has ever made it explicit, but it is present in every conversation we have, a weight that is also a bond. His silence had that weight in it. Simone, he said. Marcus, I said. I stopped Venmo and GU, he said. I know. I kept meaning to catch up, and I didn't, and I let it go too long. You did, I said. And then Tuesday, I said. He exhaled. It was the kind of exhale that is not quite a sigh and not quite a breath, but is something between the two, the physical expression of a person sitting with something they cannot argue with. I'm sorry, he said. For the call. And for the program payments. Both. I know, I said. I appreciate you saying it. We talked for a few minutes more about Destiny, about the program, about whether Marcus needed help navigating the new billing setup with Sandra. I gave him Sandra Ose's direct email. He said he'd handle it that week. I said I knew he would. When we ended the call, I sat in my apartment in the quiet of a Saturday afternoon in late November, and I thought about the 11 rows in the spreadsheet and what it had cost to maintain them and what it had cost me to examine them, finally, as a single thing. December came. The separation letters from the phone carrier went out in the first week. Ray established his own insurance policy through his personal broker, a man named Dale Whitmore, who Ray mentioned in a follow-up text as though the specificity of the name would communicate that he had handled it properly. Celeste organized a family effort to collect my grandmother's furniture from the storage unit over a weekend, and she sent me a photo of the unit empty and clean with the message, "Done. Thank you for holding this," which was the most she had said about the holding in 2 years. The streaming subscriptions produced the most visible cascade, simply because they were the most daily. Platforms don't announce why access is stopped. They present an error or a login failure or a suddenly reduced feature set, and the person experiencing it has to investigate. My Uncle Ray's household lost access to 2 platforms simultaneously on December 1st. His teenagers apparently spent 2 days troubleshooting before Ray called the carrier and was told the subscription had been canceled by the account holder, and the account holder was not Ray. This was the moment, across the various branches of my family, that the full shape of the thing became clear to everyone at the same time. Not the phone plan, which people had been told about. Not the storage unit, which Celeste had managed. The streaming platforms, because they were daily and domestic and their absence was immediately visible and the explanation for it was specific. The account holder, whose name, when Ray's son looked it up, was mine. I know this because Paulette texted me from her regular account on December 3rd. She was no longer blocked. The message said, "You're unblocked. Everyone is talking about the streaming thing." Aunt Celeste called a family check-in. "I thought you should know." I replied, "Thanks for telling me." She replied, "Are you going to the check-in?" I replied, "No." She sent back a single emoji, a small nod of acknowledgement, and that was the end of that exchange. The family check-in happened on a Sunday in the second week of December. I was not there. I know what was discussed because Celeste called me the following Tuesday and told me, with the specific care of a person who has been appointed to deliver information and wants to do it accurately. She said the family had talked about the accounts. She said there had been a conversation about the group call, who had organized it, who had participated, what had been said. She said my Uncle Ray had repeated, in the check-in, what he had told me on the phone, that he had said at the time it was wrong. She said Marcus had said he owed me amends and that he had already been in contact with me directly, which was confirmed. She said there was a general acknowledgement, her word was acknowledgement, which I noted for its precision, that the group call had been wrong and that what had come to light about the accounts had changed the family's understanding of my role. Then she said something that I want to give you exactly because it was the most honest thing any of them said in this entire sequence. "We treated you like you were permanent, like you would always be there, and nothing you did was something we needed to pay attention to. That was wrong." I held the phone. I looked out my apartment window at the December sky, which was the particular flat gray of that time of year in the city where I live. I said, "Thank you for saying that." She said, "What do you need from us going forward?" I said, "I need the accounts to be yours. I need you to manage what belongs to your household. I need to be a person in this family, not a utility." Celeste said, "Okay." I said, "And I need some time before the holidays feel normal again." She said, she understood. We ended the call. It has been 9 months since that November. I want to tell you what has and hasn't changed, and I want to be honest about both. What has changed? The accounts are theirs. Every line on the spreadsheet has been resolved, transferred, closed, or taken over by the person it served. The spreadsheet exists now as a record of something that used to be true, not a list of active obligations. Marcus has been paying Sandra Osei directly since December, without interruption. Ray's insurance is with Dale Whitmore. Celeste calls me on a Sunday about once a month to talk, not to arrange something, not to ask me to handle anything. Just to talk. These are not dramatic changes. They are structural ones. What hasn't changed? The family is still the family. There are people in it who default to assumption, who reach for convenience before they reach for reciprocity. I understand this now without being surprised by it, and I manage my participation accordingly. I am present for the things I want to be present for. I set up nothing I am not prepared to maintain. I hold nothing I have not chosen to hold. My grandmother's furniture, after leaving the storage unit, went to the people it was supposed to go to. Celeste's house has the dining table. Marcus has the reading chair that sat in my grandmother's front room for 40 years. Ray took a lamp that his wife had always liked. I took nothing because none of it had been designated for me, and I had long ago made my peace with that. What I want to say to you before I go is this. You cannot be essential to people who have made themselves unable to see you. The moment they stopped being able to see me, they stopped being able to see what I was holding, and the two are connected. Visibility is not vanity. It is the condition under which other people can understand what they owe you and what you owe yourself. The night I opened the laptop and went through the spreadsheet, row by row, I was not ending anything. I was finishing something that had already ended on a group call I hadn't been invited to. All I did was make sure the end was complete. Before I go, I want to ask you something I have been sitting with since the Sunday check-in that I didn't attend. Celeste told me that at some point in the check-in, someone had asked what they thought I would do when I found out about the blocked accounts. And the answer that had come back from most of the room, the consensus answer, before anyone knew what I had actually done, was that I would reach out. That I would send a message asking what had happened. That I would, in other words, do what I had always done, try to maintain the connection. My question for you is this. If you had been in that room on that Sunday and someone asked what they thought the person they had just blocked would do, and the room agreed she would reach out, what does that say about what they actually understood about her? And did they block her because they thought she would always come back, or in spite of it? Tell me in the comments. I read everyone. If this story stayed with you, subscribe. There's a new story every week, and I don't want you to miss the next one. Hit the notification bell. And if you know someone who has been the utility in a family that forgot she was a person, share this with them. I'll see you next time.